I'm gonna make a deal with you guys. If this video can get just 300 views, I will make a part 2 video that talks about not only the ARG events that occurred after Cloverfield released, but I will also break down the ARGs for its sequel, 10 Cloverfield Lane, and yes, Cloverfield Paradox. I may have miscalculated. I've been doing YouTube for around 10 years now, and the niche long-form video about an ARG for a 16-year-old movie was not the video I thought would blow up, but I am a man of my word. I'm back to pick up where we left off because we have some unfinished business, don't we?
Yeah, not only do we have 2 more movies to dig into with their own independent ARGs to talk about, but I left you guys on a bit of a cliffhanger with some ARG events that happened after the release of the first movie.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through the events that unveiled themselves after Cloverfield hit theaters, and then we are going to dive into all of the exciting ARG events that took place for the wonderful Dan Trachtenberg-led sequel, 10 Cloverfield Lane. And the third one. If you haven't watched part 1 of this, I highly recommend you do so you can get up to speed. And of course, not only are we going to discuss the ARGs, but just like last time, I'll be showing you how they fit into the films themselves. Lots of twists and turns and even some puzzle-solving drama that we'll get into. We've got a lot to cover today, so without further ado, I present to you the mystery box of Cloverfield Part 2. That's a lot of rhyming. Should I change that?
Probably.
Ah, fuck it.
Run! No!
So January 18th rolled around, the movie premiered, it made big money at the box office, and it kind of seemed like that was it for this wild ride. There was one very hilarious update to HUD's MySpace that changed his height to 2'6", which, god, that is a good joke. Props to the ARG team for that one. But things tapered off like you would expect for any film doing any sort of marketing. Hasbro announced on the 21st of January that an official Cloverfield monster figure would be released. The only reason I mention this is because, one, the figure itself is really fucking cool. I mean, look at this thing. It's not alive, but it is most certainly huge, with 2 interchangeable faces, a decapitated Lady Liberty head, a handful of Parasite figures included, and
70 points of articulation!
The other reason I wanted to talk about this is because this thing is a big collector's item now that not a lot of people even know exist, and it sells for over $2,000 online, which is wild considering it was just $100 when it was originally sold. Not really important to what we're talking about today, but I thought this was interesting enough to give a mention. On the 24th, that Slusho contest that I mentioned from the last video had the winners officially announced, and yeah, they are as weird as you can imagine. Yes, that's enough of that. On March 18th, it is announced that the official DVD release of the movie will be on April 22nd.
And this is the start of where things get interesting. You see, soon after they started announcing the DVD release of the film and its special edition counterpart, a mysterious symbol suddenly appeared on the slusho.jp website. You can't click on it, it doesn't lead to anything new.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Obviously, this raised some questions. Shouldn't the ARG have ended already? I mean, movie's out now, what is there left to uncover?
Well, on April 1st of all days, the 11808 website actually updates with a 12th photo, and it's a missing poster for none other than Taito's Employee of the Month, Teddy Hansen. And for the first time in a while on the site, flipping the image over actually reveals something. Another mysterious sword symbol, and next to it, the numbers 430. This got people pretty excited because this is the first time we actually see what Teddy looks like, and it means that we're not done with the viral marketing shenanigans just yet. The next day, we see our little sword and cloud image appear twice on the Tagarado website. One spotted over the Tagarado Corporation tab, and the other over the Deep Sea Drilling tab. At this point, people started catching on and assumed it was only a matter of time before the strange icon would appear over on the other websites, and, like clockwork, a strange icon appears over at the Jamie and Teddy website, and the Taito website as well, which, by the way, has become unlocked again, as when we last left it, it had been completely locked down by the Internal Affairs Department. So this was interesting and all, but people were at a complete loss for what this could mean. There were suspicions originally that this logo had something to do with Taito, given that the weird swirly portion of the image could be perceived as a wave, but with it all appearing over on the title page itself, there was no telling where this was all leading.
Now, moving over to April 4th, we start to see that some review copies of the film are getting loose in the wild, and people who got early copies of the DVD discovered that there was a secret hidden 17th chapter on the scene selection screen. If you still have your DVD of this movie, you can check this out yourself by going to chapters 13 through 16 and then waiting on that page for 1 minute, and you'll see the secret 17th chapter reveal itself. Doing this brings you to a very strange little screen titled USGX 8810B467 Supplemental Files. Just rolls right off the tongue.
It is here that some of the ARG content for the film is viewable. This alpha encounter file actually leads to the English, Spanish, French, and Japanese tri-station news reports. Person of Interest JLVD contains vlogs 2, 5, 9, and 11 from Jamie Lascano, who I can only imagine is still sleeping somewhere peacefully in the middle of war-torn New York. And finally, this last one here contains a semi-functional Slusho website page with access to that S-tier commercial they made.
Okay, I know what you're all thinking. So far, all I've blabbered on about is an action figure that's out of my tax bracket, a symbol that has seemingly no purpose, a photo of Teddy Hansen in an edgy Instagram filter, and a secret menu on the DVD that leads to content that we've already seen. Where is this going? Honestly, that's a fair question. This epilogue, if you will, for the ARG is a slow burn that left a lot of people scratching their heads at first at where this was all heading. That is, until a certain eco-terrorist cell finally breaks their silence.
On April 11th, the Tidal Wave website actually updates with a new blog post that is very short but direct. To missing Teddy Hansen, there's no help coming, stop your campaign, there's nothing here. If you notice, missing Teddy Hansen has no spaces here, almost as if it's a username. On their last blog post, dated all the way back from the 17th of January where they mentioned horns down, there's a comment from someone by the username of missing Teddy Hansen, and here they refer to Teddy as their brother. Now this person posted this on the 2nd of April, and no one paid any mind to it at the time because anyone can comment on the Taito post. So people assumed at first maybe it was just someone doing a little bit of role-playing, but after Taito responded to it, it directly revealed to everyone that this person was actually part of the ARG. Now we'll get to find out a lot more about Teddy's supposed siblings soon enough, but the next day, the Cloverfield Clues blog site receives a review copy of the Cloverfield DVD. Now this is worth mentioning because the case itself contains a government seal with yet again our mysterious sword icon on each side, and an 11-digit serial type number that is upside down between the symbols. No one has any clue why it's there, but by God is it there. Fast forward to April 15th, missing Teddy Hansen finally replies to Taito, and they've got a few choice words for them giving up on Teddy. The most interesting thing about their message, though, is that they attempt to rally others to their cause by asking people to come to their blog. Now, if y'all are here from the last video, y'all know exactly how this works. It took no time at all for participants to search for missingteddyhansen.blogspot.com, and on top of a brand new website, it is revealed that Teddy Hansen's sibling is a sister named Elise Hansen. This blog has the missing Teddy Hansen photo we saw on the 11808 page. We also get some tasty Teddy lore to dig into as well. Elise explains that Teddy was supposed to call her to make some holiday plans together, but instead of a phone call from him, she gets a call from someone claiming to be from the CIA, specifically an agent by the name of John Goretti, and he asks about what Teddy does for work. She goes on to explain that Teddy used to actually work for one of Tagruato's subsidiaries, Parafun Wax Distributions, and at some point during the summer, Teddy left that company to start working for Taito instead. Both Parafun and Taito deny knowing the whereabouts of Teddy since his disappearance on December 7th, 2007, and strangely enough, when Elise didn't have any information that the quote-unquote CIA cared about, here's how they responded.
Go fuck yourself!
Okay, maybe not in those words, but they do stop reaching out to her. All of these organizations basically just ghosted her and said, "Sucks to suck, bro." So she started this blog to rally people to her cause to help her finally uncover the truth of what happened to her brother. The only post she has on here at the moment is from April 1st, where she rallies her community to call John Goretti. Elise? Kinda hard to do that without some kind of contact info. Oh, hey, thanks.
Apparently on the 17th, John Goretti accidentally sent her his email through his fucking BlackBerry phone, and dear God, I just took like 20 hit damage thinking about how long ago BlackBerries were a thing. I'm gonna need a minute. Okay, now that I've accepted I'm inching closer to death every waking moment, the next day, Elise posts another update and she reveals a message she received from Tagrawato after attempting to contact them nonstop for the past several months.
It is an incredibly corporate response, and they are clearly not going to budge on what exactly went down at Tri-Station the day it collapsed. As we spring forward to April 24th, we find Elise deep in thought and frustration in a new blog post, unsure of what direction to go and feeling hopeless. In an interesting turn of events, however, an anonymous user replies saying, "You'll notice one of the files is missing. That's where your prayers will be answered. Now please stop." And Elise actually comments back to them, mentioning that they don't have any other way to reach out, and that they found the missing GX file, but they don't have the username and password for it. Now, if you're confused right now, don't be alarmed, this is natural. This curious exchange suggests there is something Elise is aware of that we haven't entirely pieced together yet, and even by May 1st, we are still left puzzled with Elise adding a new post saying, "Okay, I got to the missing USGX file website, but I still can't figure out the username and password." The wording here confirming there is some website that we're needing to find out, but no one had any clue what website that could be. That is, until user Guesstimate Jones finally remembers something important.
Remember that supplemental files page that I mentioned that you could access on the DVD by navigating to that hidden 17th chapter? Well, Mr. Jones noticed that each file on that page follows the Fibonacci sequence, and if you don't know what the Fibonacci sequence is, ask any tool fail, they'll be happy to tell you. The Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers in which each number is the sum of the two previous numbers that precede it. In Tool's song Ladderless,
that joke is going to land with like 2% of you. I hope you enjoyed that. As I was saying though, Guesstimate Jones realized that it was following the sequence until the very end when it seemingly skips a number in the sequence, the number 233. By entering USGX 8810B467233px.com, he was welcomed by a basic login screen where we, just like Elise, are met with a username and password that we do not know. Naturally, folks started bashing their heads together attempting to figure out what the login would be, until user LOOMGMoto very cleverly realized if you go to the top of the browser bar and change the word unauthorized to access, you can actually just bypass the whole login screen entirely.
For a top secret government website, that is some shit security. As a side note, I will say that eventually players were able to finally figure out the actual login for the website, and funnily enough, the username was Elise Hansen, and the password was, I shit you not, that weird serial number that was on the government sticker for the Cloverfield DVD. But on that website, we finally get the answers that Elise had been looking for. Well, sort of.
It is on this page that we are given 2 additional photos, both of which suggest that these photos were taken upon Taguawato's official discovery of the Cloverfield monster deep at the bottom of the ocean floor, as well as the parasite creatures that appeared in the movie. And along with those photos, we are given a transcription of a radio transmission between someone by the name of Atsumi and presumably the submarine shown in the photographs. While it is not outright said, it is heavily alluded to here that all of the Taito crew members that were aboard the Tri-Station died, which would sadly include our dear friend Teddy Hansen. Which we kind of already guessed.
Yeah, I won't lie, the events that transpired after the film release kind of just fizzle into nothing really rewarding, unfortunately. Even after Elise is able to see with her own 2 eyes the truth of what happened to her brother, she sits there in denial, convinced that this is not where the trail ends. But it does. This is how the first Cloverfield ARG ended, and while it's cool, I guess, to have some sort of closure on what exactly happened to Teddy, none of this feels as engaging as the original bulk of the ARG, which is why I did hold off on talking about it until now. For what it's worth, I truly think this ARG is one of the most consistently interesting viral marketing campaigns ever created for a film, and even though the end is kind of just there, you can tell that everyone involved in making this really cared about making something incredibly unique, and I honestly do believe they made something incredible, flaws and all.
The very last thing that's worth mentioning regarding this film is that on June 3rd, Cloverfield got a release on a super cool new piece of technology called a Blu-ray disc. Can you believe this movie came out only 2 years after the Blu-ray was invented? God, I'm getting so fucking old. Anyway, The Blu-ray version of the film includes a really neat feature called Special Investigation Mode, where during the film you were treated to all kinds of interesting lore surrounding this universe that had never been before revealed, like the fact that the parasites have concentrated levels of Kaite no Mitsu in their blood, the monster itself is referred to by the government as an LSA or a large-scale aggressor, and finally, the answer we have been begging for this entire time. We learn that Beth's date Travis survived the attack. Woo! We also ended up learning other interesting bits of lore from the filmmakers themselves. Matt Reeves himself giving us some very interesting bit of info that the monster we see in the film is actually a baby. And I don't even want to think about what a full-grown version of that. No, we're not talking about that yet!
But that is it. That is everything surrounding the ARG for the first Cloverfield movie. Now, logically, the next thing we should talk about is the sequel to Cloverfield, known as 10 Cloverfield Lane. But before we could do that, I think it's important that we kind of dig into what happened in between these two films, because there is an 8-year gap where we went from a found footage film with a bunch of mostly unknown actors to Mary Elizabeth Winstead fighting Flying Butthole. Obviously, there was a change in direction, and I think that's worth discussing.
See, after the first film released, JJ and the crew weren't exactly sure where to go for a sequel. They knew they wanted to make one. I mean, the first film was a box office success, why not make more? But they struggled with what a sequel would actually look like.
The thing that we sort of promised ourselves is that we only wanted to do another one if we could come up with something that felt as fresh to us, for us to make, as that one did. So we're still kind of toying with what it's going to be and whether or not we're going to find something that will be as exciting for us to make and hopefully for an audience to watch. So we'll see. It's really in the baby stages, and right now it's definitely on hold until we come up with what that would be.
One idea they toyed around with was that they would do a parallel sequel revolving around another group of survivors attempting to live through the same attack in New York City. In the scene where the group is crossing the bridge, there's a moment where HUD's camera pans across to a bystander with their own camera, and for a brief moment, these two perspectives cross. I personally would have really liked to seen this idea fleshed out and realized, but as we all know, this never came to fruition, and year after year, the idea of a Cloverfield sequel became more of an uncertainty. One day, JJ receives a spec script to review. A spec script, if you don't know, is basically a script that gets made and given away with the hopes that it'll be purchased and used for a project. This one in particular was called The Cellar, written by Josh Campbell and Matt Stewekin, and it tells the story of a girl named Michelle who wakes up in a stranger's underground survival bunker after surviving a car accident, and he explains to her that he has kept her there due to some mysterious major world event happening above ground. And if you've seen 10 Cloverfield Lane, you already know that is basically verbatim the plot to that movie. So how did this become a Cloverfield film?
Well, as the years went on, old JJ started thinking differently about what Cloverfield could be as a concept. What if Cloverfield was a platform to tell stories about people experiencing otherworldly sci-fi phenomenon? Think Twilight Zone, or Black Mirror, or even Night Springs, where my Alan Wake fans at?
And just like that, Cloverfield became an anthology series. This time with the help of Dan Trachtenberg making his directorial feature film debut after the success of his Portal fan film, The Cellar became 10 Cloverfield Lane, a film that, in JJ's eyes, would be a blood relative or spiritual successor to the first film, and the third act, featuring all the crazy alien encounters, was added to the script to give it that little Cloverfield razzle-dazzle. The film stars John Goodman, Elizabeth Winstead, John Gallagher Jr., and Bradley Cooper. What? I literally found this out while writing this video. He makes a voice cameo as Michelle's fiance Ben right at the start of the movie, but we're getting sidetracked here. The entire cast gives absolutely phenomenal performances, especially John Goodman, who is so good at playing a character that can snap at any moment.
Luckily, I prepared for this.
Yeah. That man is unwell. The movie was produced with a microscopic $15 million budget, which was even smaller than the original film's budget, and ended up grossing $110 million at the box office. Not bad for a movie that was revealed just 2 months before its release. Yeah, you heard that right, but I'm getting ahead of myself here.
So with all of that backstory out of the way, we are going to fast forward to the year 2016. And look at that! Obama's president, Drake's still an artist we respect, and I'm in college for a film degree that I did not complete, but that's besides the point. The point is, it's been a long fucking time since we've heard anything substantial about a Cloverfield sequel. But on January 15th, during the previews for, I kid you not, another Michael Bay film called 13 Hours, we were treated to this.
Something's coming.
Y'all, the scream that I fucking scrubbed when I saw this trailer.
Right off the bat, let me just say, this is a really great trailer on its own merit. Sure, we don't get the bizarreness of not knowing the name of the movie this time around, but it does such a good job of building the tension and mystery of what is happening, and knowing that not only were we getting another Cloverfield film, but it was coming out in just 2 short months?
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
Now let me be clear, while only 2 months before the film releases that the ARG that we are about to discuss is much shorter, it is by no means lesser in quality, and the ARG has some really cool stuff that happens in it that I can't wait to talk to you about. But just before we dive in, there is one more thing that needs to be mentioned, and that is, with this new time period we are in the year of our Lord 2016, not only is unfiction forum still around, but Reddit exists now. Hey Reddit! Oh, it's so good to see you! Oh, I can't wait to see how helpful and supportive and friendly you are to the newcomers of this type of experience. Are you sensing what I'm foreshadowing?
What are you doing in my swamp?
Now, veterans of Cloverfield knew damn well that this wasn't just going to be any old trailer for a film. No. There had to be some sort of clue in here that would lead to some secret website, right? Well, it didn't take long for people to realize that in this trailer, it's briefly shown that there is another beverage on display here called Swamp Pop. And at first glance, you might think, okay, they came up with another fake soda brand for this movie. But I freaked out because I immediately recognized this soda. Not only is this a very real soda brand, this shit is literally made in the city that I lived in.
Swamp Pop is a local soda brand made with cane sugar that was created and sold in Lafayette, Louisiana, and other surrounding cities in the state, which makes it very clear early on that the story is going to take place in the state of Louisiana. Swamp Pop had an assortment of delicious flavors from root beer to satsuma, and I say that in past tense because sadly, as of the time of writing this about 6 months ago, they have seemingly gone out of business. I had a whole intermission bit I was going to do where I ranked each flavor that they had, and it seems that they've pulled their inventory because I can't find them anywhere anymore, and their website got taken down as well.
Back to the topic at hand, though, people very quickly found the Swamp Pop website and thought it was a dead end due to them being an already existing company, and they just assumed that they weren't actually doing a beverage tie-in this time. That is, until they noticed a very interesting item in the shop. In addition to their regularly sold soda selections, they curiously had an item that was out of stock labeled Long-Term Shelter Supply that was being sold for $4,813, which just so happened to be the numbers that were on the jukebox at the start of the trailer, along with a description for the product stating that it's a 15-year-long ration of their products for when there doesn't seem to be anyone around. And if that wasn't obvious enough for you, on the main page of their site, they have a little slogan that reads, "You can't drink just 4, which is a very clear callback to Slush Show's slogan of, "You can't drink just 6.
I won't lie, this was all very exciting for me. This was the first time where I wasn't just witnessing these events take place, I was actively taking part in trying to solve them. If I sound a little bit more invested about this one, it's because while I was very much invested in the first film's ARG, I was only a witness to it. I never took part in any of the puzzle solving, I kind of just watched it all unfold. This time around though, I was older, I knew more about how these kinds of games worked, and this was taking place in my home state, so I was ready.
So my first thought was to reach out to them and see when they might have more of this mystery supply. I was already aware that they had a Facebook page because I was already following them, so I figured I'd message them about it, and a few other players did as well. Sure enough, they actually replied, and this screenshot is actually from me back when I was participating in this one. Upon inquiring about this mysterious care package, they replied stating that because of an incident on the eastern seaboard, their supply line has been cut off from being able to support this order and would contact us when it's available. That didn't stop people from ordering their various other products though, and it's a good thing too because customers who ordered these Swamp Pop drinks started receiving random jigsaw pieces in their orders. Naturally, unfiction forums and the newly established Reddit page for 10 Cloverfield Lane were able to piece together that these pieces all come from a very specific jigsaw puzzle you could find online. A puzzle of Paris's own Eiffel Tower, which sounds very strange on paper until you realize that in the trailer there's a lot of Eiffel Tower imagery in the place that our 3 characters are hanging out in, including one of the characters themselves attempting to solve a jigsaw puzzle of their own.
We will now flash forward to January 30th, because it is on this day that we see the return of a long-lost drilling corporation. People who had participated in the previous ARG 8 years ago, including Dennis, who hosts the Cloverfield Clues blogspot site, receives a mysterious email from a Vanessa Guan of Tagruato. The email in question is quite peculiar, as it informs the reader that, quote, due to security protocols, this account is no longer active. All correspondence is monitored and will be responded to accordingly. And it's signed by Vanessa, and that's it. This email comes across as a bit of a nothing burger, and most people chalked it up as a heads up that Tagruato will be a player in this film's ARG again, but nothing else beyond that. Or so we thought.
I can't believe this. They fucking forgot my birthday.
On February 4th, participants received yet another email from Tagruato with the same exact messaging, except this time it wasn't Vanessa who was sending it, it was a Dr. Feng. Now, why would multiple people be sending the same email 2 months in a row? What's the point? Well, if you look closely on both of the emails, you can see both employees were a couple of good noodles, because they both received the highly prestigious award of Employee of the Month for January and February, respectively. Eventually, people started thinking that they needed to return to the Tagruato webpage to look up these individuals, but were left with a dead end. Everything appeared as it did 8 years ago, with no new updates. Eventually, someone got the idea to try and adjust the web address for Tagruato with a little addendum. Typing in tagruato.jp/employee of the month led to a secret page commemorating the various employees within Tagruato and its subsidiaries that showed exemplary performance.
I'm going to show you this webpage. I want you to tell me if anything stands out, okay? You ready? I don't know, maybe something in this general direction.
This webpage fucking kills me, because it is so quickly apparent that one of these is not like the others. They don't even try to hide which one of these people is important. Look at all these people in their lab coats and smiling faces, and then there's John fucking Goodman in a graphic t-shirt and flannel posing for what might as well be his mugshot. It's like the easiest game of Where's Waldo, except Waldo was an Emmy Award winner. It is here, though, that we learn the name of our first main character, Howard Stambler, an employee of Bold Futura, and here he's being recognized for solving some communications issues with some satellites. Also noteworthy here is that our sharp-dressed man is wearing a t-shirt that appears to say Radio Man 70. A Radio Man was a rating issued by the United States Navy from 1921 to 1997 that was designated to soldiers who specialized in communications technology. Given Howard's recent commendation as well as the matching insignia on his t-shirt, this would check out. Naturally, ARG goers decided to see if RadioMan70.com was a website, and lo and behold, typing this address in directs you to another website titled funandprettythings.com.
Man, these ARGs really like to lead people to secret web pages hinted at on t-shirts, huh?
Now, I'm sorry for the whiplash that you probably just received going from discussing military rankings to whatever's going on here, but bear with me, because there's a lot to unpack from just the screen alone. In the second photo in the fourth row, we see yet another Eiffel Tower image. In the first photo in the second row, we see an image of some beads for a bracelet kit, and it just so happens that the beads for the letters A, E, G, M, and N are missing. If you rearrange those letters, however, you would uncover a name, Megan. Remember that name, it's going to be very important moving forward. Last but not least, in the second photo, second row, we see a frame from the film Pretty in Pink starring Molly Ringwald. This image is actually clickable. When you do this, you're prompted to enter a passphrase. Initially, people weren't sure what the password for this could be, and in an unusual move, people started actually trying to brute force their way into the website at one point.
A fun fact about ARGs is that brute forcing is typically frowned upon. A good ARG will always have a proper way for you to discover any clues without the need to force your way through any roadblocks that you might have run into that the game maker set up. Which makes this next bit really funny, because people who attempted to inspect the source code for the website to try and uncover the password were met with a very friendly message from the site maker directly. You do not belong here. Megan would never come here. I know who you are and will be tracking you.
Eventually, Reddit user Briar Rose decided to actually check out the scene that this still is from in Pretty in Pink, and discovered that in that scene, the computer pops up with a message that says, "Do you want to talk?" Typing this message yourself leads us to a secret message from Radio Man, who we can only assume is Howard himself, to his daughter Megan. We find out that Howard's been trying to make contact with Megan, but to no avail, presumably because her mother's been purposely blocking all communication between the two of them, and this website is a means to still keep a line of communication to her under the radar of his ex-wife. We also learn that Howard is a serious doomsday prepper, and alludes to the idea that there may be some impending attack on the horizon. Now, any doomsday prepper worth their salt should have an underground bunker, right? Well, that's exactly what he's done, and implores Megan to come to him to take shelter in his new and improved bunker. But see, Mr. Radio has already realized that it might be hard for her to get to where he is, so he does the normal thing to do and pays for a flight for her to get there, right? No. Instead, he hires a crew to build him a backup bunker in Chicago for Megan to take shelter in. God damn, how much is this guy's net worth? That is like Batman level shit.
What are your superpowers again? I'm rich.
In the final paragraphs of Howard's statement, he urges her to head to that Chicago bunker as soon as she can, and to keep checking the site so that he can help her prepare for this plan. Notably here, the words "keep checking the site" are highlighted in blue as if it's supposed to be a hyperlink, but it doesn't lead to anywhere, and in addition to this, if you try to reply to Howard's message, you're prompted with another passphrase question. What was the secret gift I gave you on your 13th birthday?
Don't look at me, I don't know. In fact, no one knows the answer to this. We've uncovered secret websites, found Roman numerals on a fucking crab, but we are utterly halted by a pop quiz.
Without knowledge of Megan's birthday gift history, we had come to our first roadblock, and we would continue to be stuck all the way through to February 11th when Howard makes a new message over at the Fun and Pretty Things site. He comments how we still haven't replied to his message yet, and assumes it's because Megan's mother has had a close eye on her. The way he describes her insinuates that this mom figure is pretty controlling and is in Megan's ear, filling her head with negative ideas about her father. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the divorce was not an amicable one. Howard continues encouraging Megan to find some way to get over to his shelter in Louisiana, offering to buy her a train ticket to New Orleans, and states that taking a plane would be too dangerous, which answers my question from earlier, why he didn't suggest that to begin with. So this is why I would never survive the apocalypse. I would just die day one. Howard really wants Megan to head his way though, practically bribing her with her favorite ice cream, offering her anything she wants. You get an underlying sense of urgency in these messages that suggests that something bad's gonna happen very soon and he needs to get her somewhere safe quickly. In addition to this new message, we also see an update to that "keep checking this site" text, as it now has a working hyperlink that leads to funandprettythings.com/life-preserving information. And this shit is insane. This page is full of useful tips for preparing for any kind of doomsday event, from tips on how to make a bug-out bag, with a drawing from Howard on how to organize it, to hot wiring a car, and it's full of links from actual websites with real-life information on how to prepare for survival situations. It's very thought out and borderline psychotic. Listen to this. While you're on your way, stay aware of your surroundings at all times. It could come from anywhere. If you see a big white flash in the sky, it's likely a nuclear attack. Get off the highway and get to a rural, unpopulated area as soon as possible. I'm not sure how old exactly Megan is, but if my dad was talking to me like that at a young age, I'd be like, yeah, Mom's right. You're fucking crazy.
It's all connected. The North Korea angle, it's all BS. We should be focusing on the Soviets.
Dad, you're freaking me out.
If it's a biological or a chemical attack, stay in your car and stay away from people as much as you can. There will be no safety in numbers. You can pick up a gas mask from any surplus store, so make sure you get one for your bug-out bag. Here's some more good info for you to review.
This is a real thing that Howard says on this page, by the way. I am not making this up. From train routes to New Orleans to space weather conditions, no one can say Howard has not prepared his daughter for literally any scenario.
Howard is clearly a man who cares about his daughter and her safety, but it's also very obvious that he's also a little unhinged and on the paranoid side, as, you know, most doomsday preppers tend to be.
Now we're going to pause for a moment here with this stuff from Howard, because the next day, on February 12th, various theaters started playing updated trailers for 10 Cloverfield Lane. I say trailers plural because there were 5 different variations that each have a hidden image showcasing some numbers in each one of the pictures. At the moment, all we have are these potato quality versions to look at, and they're hard to determine what exactly needs to be seen here, so we'll put this aside for now, but the payoff for this is so good, we will get back to this. Moving forward to February 17th, Howard updates the life-preserving section of the page with an updated message saying, quote, "Megan, this is why I say you should always be aware of what's happening around you. Look." And along with this message is a link to a real news article about a train track fire in New Orleans that actually happened that week.
This entry is so fascinating to me, just from an alternate reality game-making standpoint, because the game makers here are using real-life events to help push the narrative of their characters they're making, and it's a moment of on-the-fly adapting that genuinely impresses me, and if somehow any of those people ever see this video, bravo. That's some good shit right there.
Because of this incident, Howard implores Megan to no longer seek using the train as a means to make her way to his location, and instead encourages her to take her mom's car, or someone else's car, and drive there instead and hurry. At this point, Howard is either fucking insane or he knows something we don't. The next day, we get a new message from Howard again, and we get a huge lore dump about him in this. Howard, in an attempt to convey to Megan the urgency of the situation, reveals that he, along with a small team, used to work directly with spy satellites for the US Navy, and during an investigation of Soviet spy satellites, uncovered something way bigger than anything they were assigned to investigate on. However, upon attempting to report this to the US, the government tried to silence their investigations, resorting to punishment to certain members with countless life sentences. Howard left the Navy soon after, but with the reveal of a new spy satellite on the horizon, Howard suspects that this is being used to investigate whatever he and his crew discovered out there in space, and feels time is running out to prepare for it. And again, included with this is a real article about a real US spy satellite.
I gotta say, the first Cloverfield ARG did a great job of making the characters feel like real people with all of their MySpace accounts and getting unknown actors at the time to portray them, but this ARG really excels at making the events themselves feel real and grounded by implementing these real-time world events into the narrative, and adds this unique layer of tangibility to what's unfolding as if some shit is actually gonna happen.
I also want to add, in case you guys haven't noticed this, Howard has these cute little boomer-ass traits in the way that he writes. Like the fact that he can't seem to find out how to turn off caps lock, and he's constantly having spelling errors in his messages. This little detail, by the way, actually had people thinking for a while that this website was a game jack created to trick people into believing it's part of the ARG, because they thought the typos were done on accident. On February 19th, it was discovered those 5 Cloverfield trailer variants with the 5 images embedded in them were actually viewable on YouTube by searching up the right keywords that match the descriptions of the images themselves. For example, typing in the search bar Sailor Monkey would bring you to a video titled Sailor Monkey with the Paramount Pictures logo, and there you could see an HD version of the trailer with the Sailor Monkey image clear as day with some numbers on his shoulders. After some time, it was discovered that the keywords were Sailor Monkey, Navy football, on deck, flotation vest, and parachute pants. Kudos to whoever figured out that last one, because what the hell? As you can see here though, each one of these frames showcases an image with a series of numbers, and in addition to that, there seems to be some words watermarked on each one that are hard to make out. A few Photoshop edits later though, and those words are revealed to be Abel, Baker, Charlie, Dog, and Easy. Now if you take the numbers... basically. No, we're not doing that joke again. If you put the numbers in order of their watermarked words alphabetically, you get this. Drop that into a GPS, and you get the coordinates for a lot in Covington, Louisiana. And this is where we reach the highest highs and the lowest lows of this ARG.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
Before we dive into this next section, I want to peel back the curtain for a moment and discuss what goes into making an ARG. I've gotten the opportunity to make a couple myself for my community in the past when I did content on Twitch, and while those are obviously on a much smaller scale than any of the stuff we're talking about, they gave me a huge appreciation for what goes into making them. They are fucking hard. Puzzles have to be made from scratch. You have to find the right balance of difficulty because you don't want them to be solved within minutes. There's a chance people might get off track and get completely lost in what direction they need to go. I could go on forever. The point is, ARGs have to be well thought out, and they have to leave room for on-the-fly adjustment. Otherwise, you might have a mess on your hands with a game that falls apart because you didn't think something through. It's all very similar to the way a dungeon master creates a story in D&D. If you don't have a good DM, the story goes off the rails, and you end up in a situation you might not have anticipated for your game. I say all this because what we are about to get into showcases a prime example of an ARG puzzle done amazingly well, and the same type of puzzle gone horribly wrong.
After realizing the numbers from the various trailers led to a lot in Louisiana, it became apparent that someone would need to physically go out to Covington and investigate the location to see what was there to discover. Had I owned a car at the time this all happened, I would have been there in a heartbeat. However, that someone ended up being a Reddit user by the name of Mugen's Keeper, who offered to drive out there and investigate the next day. I actually had the wonderful opportunity to chat with Mugen for a little bit about this day in particular. Mr. Mugen, welcome. Thanks for being here, first of all. How are you doing?
Great. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could join me for this, because you have a very interesting perspective with this ARG, in that, like, you had arguably the most integral part in dealing with the major, like, player participation that came with this ARG, and so I kind of wanted you to just recall what you could about this day. It's been like 8 years now, which is incredible. It feels like just yesterday this was going on, but you know, one of the first things that caught my eye in that original post where you went out there, it looked like you were kind of like trying to figure out whether or not you wanted to go out there. And so I was kind of curious, what was the deciding factor on you actually going out there and checking it out?
Well, I'd gone out twice, and the first time we had 3 different sets of coordinates we were trying, and none of them worked out at all. And I was a night shift nurse working at the hospital at the time, and I was in the middle of a stretch of night shifts when I got a message from the Stone Ape telling me that they had another set. They had found some more information, and there was another set of coordinates, and asked me if I wanted to go try. I still had to go back to work again that next night, but it seemed so certain this time, and some of the people that were working on the coordinate part were looking at it in maps and kind of getting an idea that it seemed much better on that second try when I went out. It seemed like it was going to be a good spot to look. It wasn't on private property or anything like that, like the first coordinates were. So I decided to go for it.
Upon arrival, Keeper searched the area, not sure exactly what he should be looking for, until he spotted something extraordinary. An empty Satsuma Fizz Swamp Pop bottle on the ground. Okay, I'm kidding. While that is true, right next to that bottle was a dirt mound, and so Keeper started digging and found quite a lot.
Keeper was thoughtful enough to document his discoveries as they were happening, and recorded his findings, and you can just tell he was so excited about all this. Hands visibly shaking at times, Keeper uncovers a stashed ammo box full of survival gear like MREs, a flashlight, another puzzle piece this time from the exact puzzle that one of the main characters is working on in the trailer, 2 USB drives, one hidden in a Swiss Army knife, and another that doubles as a bottle opener, which is the weirdest fucking combination that I've ever heard of, and lastly, a note that reads, "Listen to these, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's almost right on top of us. You'll need a whole lot more than this kit if you're going to have a chance to make it to the other side. Good luck to us all, friend. H," which we can only assume is our favorite paranoid, Howard.
I cannot express the amount of hype surrounding this moment as it unfolded. The first Cloverfield ARG was so much fun, but so much of it was spent merely spectating as we watched events unfold and without any substantial involvement. But here, one of our own was able to have a unique and direct part in advancing the game this time around, and honestly, Dead Drops are just the coolest fucking thing ever. I will never stop gushing about this kind of stuff. This was a huge victory for the community as a whole, and Keeper got to walk away with so much cool stuff that to this day he keeps as a memento of this event, and I think that's just so awesome.
I absolutely have it, treasure it, and guard that with my life. I love it. And I've added some other items that had been sent to me, like a couple of people from the ARG had gone to the premiere and sent me signed movie posters from, I believe, J.J. Abrams, Dan Trachtenberg, both were there and signed the poster, and they had mailed it to me.
The biggest of shout-outs to Mugen's Keeper, you absolute legend.
There is one more important thing to note about the contents of the box, and that is the USB drives. After getting home from his investigation, Keeper was able to look at the contents of both USB drives. What's interesting is that the first thumb drive has 2 audio files, both of which are the exact same audio clip, and the second thumb drive has the same audio clip duplicated 3 times. All of these copies of the same audio ended up just being a red herring, but the content of the audio itself is, well, take a listen.
Houston, RD thermal exchange experiment, segment 721, downlink complete.
Copy ISS, Cronus confirms download complete. Proceed to mission parameter 474.
Confirmed, bringing AMS interface online.
Copy.
Houston, be advised, AMS data is outside expected parameters. Reinitializing access.
Copy.
Reinitialized access resulted in no change to anomalous data. Sending downlink. Downlink confirmed. Zodiac reachable.
We see it. Cronus is analyzing.
Looks like a localized burst of magnetic energy. It's not consistent with anything I've seen before.
Flight, this is Capcom.
Go ahead, Capcom.
We might have an off-nominal situation with AMS 02.
Have we heard from Spacecom about any activity in the area?
Negative.
The data stream is intact, so it's likely not equipment failure. Check with ESOC and Tsukuba. Find out if they're seeing the same thing we are.
ISS, it doesn't appear to be equipment failure.
Space Command, this is the flight director at Johnson. You guys testing something we don't know about? Yeah, okay, none. You guys are sure? Europe is seeing the same signal. Space Command says they don't have anything up there. We're seeing another burst in the signal. This one is bigger. It would have to be something really big to generate this kind of magnetic field.
Can you get a visual on the AMS?
Yeah, Renee's looking now. Capcom, Renee thinks he saw something.
ISS, what was that? ISS, do you copy?
Yeah, we copy, Houston. There was a flash of red light that seemed to come from everywhere, and then it was gone.
Copy ISS. Everyone okay up there?
Yeah, more or less, Houston. Tell me clear it up.
ISS, flight would like you to execute procedure 2380A and scrub this from the mission logs.
Wipe the signal, please. Notify ESOC and Tsukuba to disregard. Confirmed, Houston.
Between Howard's experiences of working for the government and this recording involving the International Space Station seeing some unexplainable phenomenon in outer space, it's all but confirmed at this point that whatever is going on this go-around is leading up to an alien invasion as opposed to the first film's undersea kaiju. Props to everyone involved during this exchange not losing their fucking minds at a blinding red flash appearing in the nothingness of space, because I would not have been that calm.
ISS, what was that? ISS, do you copy?
Houston, we're so fucked, bro.
Copy ISS. Everyone okay up there?
Screaming, crying, and throwing up, Houston. On February 20th, the life-preserving information section of the Fun and Pretty Things website updates, and Howard is pulling out all the stops. Howard has taken the time to make a text-based survival video game for Megan. I kid you not. In the hopes that this will prepare Megan for a life in an underground bunker for possibly years at a time, Howard encourages her to play the simulation that he's created for her. And it's pretty robust, honestly. You can choose how many people are in your bunker, you have a set amount of allocated units to use for specific branches of survival like food, water, and oxygen. And with that, people were off to the races trying to see how high of a score they could get on this simulator. For footage of this game, I played it myself, and as you can see, I am high garbage, as I couldn't even last a year, but other folks were able to do decently well, climbing the leaderboards and lasting several years at a time. 2 days later, on February 22nd, Howard updates the page showing the stats of the leading scores, and in there is someone named Radio Girl, and this catches Howard's eye. Elated that his daughter seems to be seeing his messages, Howard states that he will not rest until she's fully prepared. Also in this message, however, Howard says, "I know that you're seeing some weird results in the simulator. I may have to take it offline if I can't fix it, but I hope it doesn't come to that. There's no time to waste, and the simulator is going to teach you something really important.
Contrary to messages like this typically being some kind of weird hint to some clue to discover in the ARG, this was actually a warning to the ARG players from the game makers themselves.
Here's what happened. Unfortunately, some players over on Reddit figured out what program the game makers were using to create the simulation, and exploited it to essentially create fake high scores to try and brute force themselves to the top of the board to hopefully advance the game. Again, brute forcing is frowned upon in this type of experience, and the makers very clearly wanted to make it known that they were watching and they didn't want it done this way. You're wondering why this time around there seems to be a lot of cheating and brute forcing going around? You gotta remember, when the first ARG was around, the only people who were really uncovering that ARG were people who already knew how they work and were on niche sites that were dedicated to the craft of solving them, like unfiction forums. Reddit is, well, it's Reddit. It's basically its own ecosystem at this point, with millions of users on it on a daily basis. So many new people join in for this one, not really knowing what's okay and what's not for these types of things. They just wanted to be a part of something special, and ultimately created an issue where rules were broken pretty frequently.
Now Reddit, I know you're new at this, so I'm going to give you some grace. You're going to behave from now on, right? Reddit?
Throughout the course of February 25th and 26th, not only does Howard keep updating the life-preserving information page, but releases enough patches to the game to make a Bethesda game dev blush. Howard adds a bunch of new features to the simulation, effectively making the game much more complex. Morale comes into play now, as surviving alone becomes much harder than having a group of survivors band together. In addition to this, Howard adds the ability to read books and guides to help the survivors in the simulation learn new tricks to become more efficient at surviving. Despite all of these changes, players were able to rise up to these newfound challenges and continue to beat previous records, with one player in particular, the Magic Jesus, reaching 1,000 days of survival, which very much impresses Howard. Believing his daughter Megan has surpassed the challenge he set before her, on February 27th, Howard updates the life-preserving page again and congratulates her for her ability to survive in the simulator, and along with this, lets her know that he's left a cell phone for her to retrieve with the hint of "look up Nikki Harris in Chicago," as well as the combination for the lock to retrieve it. And with that, we have our second dead drop. All that's left now is to retrieve it. The hint of Nikki Harris in Chicago very quickly brings up a page online for a family hostel in Chicago near Millennium Park, and so Reddit user Helveticat decided to head that way to pick up the cell phone. Helveticat was also kind enough to record her findings, and upon arriving, she was able to find the locker, unlock the padlock attached to it, and inside she found a Paris-themed bag, as well as the cell phone that Howard promised.
Job well done, ladies and gents, we did it! Hip hip hooray, right? No hip hip, no hooray at all.
Upon unlocking the phone by entering the jukebox code from the trailer 4813, she was able to find a voicemail saved in the phone from Howard, and even recorded by John Goodman himself.
First saved voice message.
Megan, as promised, a phone just for you and me to talk. Keep it hidden so your mother doesn't want this too. I put my number into the contacts. Call me as soon as you can. I need to hear your voice. And I gotta get you out of Chicago before everything happens. Your life is in real danger, radio girl. But I promise to keep you safe. Call me, please. Love, Dad.
That's not all, however, as within the contact section of the phone is Howard's phone number. So of course, people asked Helveticat what the number was, and she didn't reveal it, and well, the Reddit community kind of imploded. There was so much outrage over this one aspect of the ARG, it was absolutely unreal. Accusations were being thrown around claiming she was being selfish and withholding information from the rest of the community. There were hundreds of people on both sides of the argument for hours, just fighting over whether or not the phone number should be shared with everyone. It was a hot mess and was a huge breaking point for the community investigating this ARG.
Reddit, what do you have to say for yourself? Oh, he's gone. He left. Okay, look, I'm obviously making a joke at Reddit's expense here, but ultimately both sides had completely legitimate reasons for feeling the way they did about this. These puzzles are group efforts, and this aspect of it becoming an isolated experience between two people fundamentally changes how this game has been played up until now. And yet, Helveticat had a great point as well. In her eyes, this phone is for Megan. One person. What would happen if hundreds of thousands of Megans started trying to reach out to Howard? Wouldn't that cause a problem and make Howard stop communication, believing this method of contact he had made to reach out to her had been compromised? This confusion and uncertainty is ultimately at the fault of the game makers here. I'm not trying to be a fence-sitter on this, but I genuinely do believe that both sides had completely valid reasons for feeling one way or another about sharing Howard's number. I will say, though, I do believe it was kind of wild for some people to believe that Helveticat made this decision in bad faith, just to spite the community. I cannot commend her enough for withstanding all the scrutiny she got for as long as she did, and really, I think if I were in her shoes, I would have done the same thing, but I digress. This created a rift among players, and for a little while, no one was solving anything. It was just fighting and discourse, and it was honestly really sad to see unfold in real time. These experiences are meant to bring people together under a unified cause, and because of unclear direction, this once fantastic ARG, as well as its growing community, was falling apart.
I just want to add, I did attempt to reach out to Helveticat a few times as well about this experience because she had a unique perspective on this situation and I wanted to hear her viewpoint. Unfortunately, she didn't get back out to me. I can only imagine it's because this is probably a sore spot for her. She probably doesn't want to think about this anymore. So I totally get it. Sadly, only more fuel was added to the fire by the fact that later that day, Paramount Pictures decided to share a short 10-second clip from the film where Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character asks our third character in the film, Emmett,
Could you give me the salt?
Somehow, this got misconstrued into people thinking it was the Bad Robot crew cheekily asking Helveticat to share the phone number. Like I said in the last video, these ARGs can make people see Jesus in the toast at times and can be so sure something is a clue when in reality it should be taken at face value. But because everything and anything can be potentially a clue, these types of situations occur. After a significant amount of pressuring and some bullying, Helveticat finally agrees to share the phone number. And guess what happened? Howard's voicemail inbox became full almost immediately. And with that, we were at a standstill. For days, no voicemails were returned, no text messages sent, nothing. Was Helveticat right? Was the community wrong to believe the number should be shared? For a moment, there was a real concern that we had essentially broken the plans of what we were expected to do on our end from this campaign. Luckily, all hope was not lost for us though, as on March 1st, Howard updates the Fun and Pretty Things site with a new post to Megan. After all of the infighting for days about what to do with the phone and overflowing Howard's inbox with voicemails, Howard hadn't received anything. I think the game makers realized they created a problem on their hands with the open-endedness of the cell phone and was like, alright, we fucked up here. Let's pretend this didn't happen. Canonically, though, Howard blames the cell phone issues on the most logical explanation: the Soviets.
I say this with 100% certainty. If Howard were a real person, he would have absolutely believed COVID was caused by 5G networks. This man is insane.
Howard rambles on for a little bit more about the Soviets and talks about his days at the Space and Naval Warfare Systems Command before urging Megan to leave immediately due to the impending event that he believes is about to occur. And in a desperate move, he now thinks it might be in her best interest to actually take a plane to him, offering to pay for the expenses.
With all of Howard's paranoia and doomsday prepping, there is one thing he forgot about. Something way worse than red flashes of light in outer space or even the Soviets. A force of nature so powerful, no bunker in the world could protect him from it. And its name is Denise.
On March 4th, in a complete change of pace from the typical government conspiracy theories that Howard normally spouts, he updates the Fun and Pretty Things site complaining to Megan that her mother is selling family heirlooms from his father. Apparently she's selling it for $500 to some unknown person online, and Howard's furious about it because it was meant to be given to Megan when she gets older. Howard ends the message probing Megan again about when she's leaving to go to him, but this message feels so out of place from the rest of Howard's typical postings that we for sure knew this had to be the start of our next lead. Unfiction user Melody Man got to thinking about what popular sites exist for people to sell items online, and after a little snooping, Melody Man stumbled upon this listing on CRAIGSLIST. A silverware collection from England, like Howard mentioned, on sale for $500. The smoking gun of this listing, though, is the fact that in the corner is a journal with the name Megan on it. Naturally, users started trying to message the seller for more info about it, but she never replied to them. Eventually, it was discovered that the location of the seller was at a place called the Terraces of Dearborn Park in downtown Chicago, but nothing was able to be found. No dead drops to be collected, nothing.
So where do we go from here? Well, on March 5th, Unfiction user V37 came up with an idea that no one else had tried yet. Instead of the straightforward approach of trying to make an offer on the silverware, V37 instead let the seller know that Howard had made a bunker for Megan and that she should go there herself to protect from whatever threat is believed to be coming. She bit hook, line, and sinker on this.
The two begin to have a lengthy dialogue with each other over the course of the 4th, all the way to March 7th, and while at first hesitant to believe him, V37 begins to gain her trust by informing her of everything that has transpired over the last few weeks. The Fun and Pretty Things site, the preservation page, the simulation, hell, Megan's favorite flavor of ice cream. You name it, he shared it. The final thing that ultimately earns her trust, however, is that V37 sends her a link to the recording of Howard's voicemail that we got from the cell phone, and upon realizing that this isn't a hoax, she reveals herself to be Denise Paulson, Howard's ex-wife. Denise goes on to explain that Howard has sent people to harass her in the past, and notice a lot of the emails she got from other users seem to be mimicking the same kind of rhetoric that Howard would often spew towards her in the past, hence her hesitation. Denise then asks V37, or as he is now known to her at this point, Danny, where she could find this website. After giving her the link, Denise is appalled by what she's seen, from the hateful words about her to the how-to guides on how to hotwire a car. Most notably, it frustrates her how Howard keeps asking Megan questions, as if she would or could reply. Remember that, it's going to be on the exam. Denise doesn't exactly remember her marriage with Howard fondly, though. She recalls late-night emergency preparedness drills, his obsession with bunker building to the point that he was pushing his family out of his life just to make it happen. The final nail in the coffin to her marriage, though, was one event in particular that I'll read in Denise's words. During one of his panics, he made us hide in the cellar. Megan must have been about 11, and she wouldn't stop asking him while we were hiding. So he put his hand over her mouth to keep her quiet, and kept it there so long that she couldn't breathe. Yeah, can we go back to Jason's NFL draft picks from the first movie? This shit is dark! Up until this point, Howard had always presented himself as a paranoid protector, someone whose crazy conspiracies and over-the-top planning was always centered around the fact that he was just protecting his quote-unquote radio girl. But if what Denise reveals is true, then Howard has a side to him that is much more twisted than he's let on. Denise thanks Danny for sharing so much with her regarding everything that's happened thus far, and asks that he never contact her again, as she needs time to process everything that she's uncovered and how best to handle it.
Well, it turned out that Denise didn't need that much time to think things over, because later the same day, Fun and Pretty Things updates with a new post. But it ain't from Howard, it's from Denise.
Remember a long time ago when we were stuck on that bit about what Megan's secret gift on her 13th birthday was? Well, Denise apparently knew that answer, as she is now able to comment on the site as well, and yeah, damn, does she put her old ussy into this message. I've taken so much away from you. You're delusional, Howard. You're sick. This whole thing is just sad and disgusting. It's a morbid fantasy of a complete lunatic. And it's in violation of your restraining order. I already called the police. And no Soviets helped me get into your little secret hiding place here. Did you really think I wouldn't remember when you gave Megan your father's medal, then blew up at her because she accidentally misplaced it? Megan was so terrified, it took months for me to get her to tell me what happened. At least this time, someone you tried to dupe with your conspiracy theories saw through the lies and showed me to what you've been up to here. There are some decent, caring people left in the world. I'm not going to tell you who, because you'd probably try to hurt him for crossing you, and you've hurt enough people already. Howard, please, 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 you can blame me for whatever you want, just leave me alone. Move on. Your paranoia costs our family. How much more will you let it take from you? From me. You need help. Serious, professional medical help. You're not well. Deep down, you have to know you'll never see Megan again. So I'm begging you, for the last time, forget about us. I'm so tired of being afraid of you. Nothing for years, and then you pop up like this, and it's like you're taking away everything I've worked so hard to rebuild. Whatever crimes you imagine I've committed, I've more than paid for them. Please let me move on, and get help. Go off, Queen! It takes a few days, but finally on March 10th, Howard gives a response. Not to Denise directly, but to Megan, pleading for her to forgive him for not being the best father growing up, claiming that everything he did was to protect her, and asks her if she is seeing this at all to please reach out to him via the phone. The biggest takeaway from this post, though, is actually the first paragraph, where Howard explains that while he's been wrong about a lot of things, he's definitely not wrong about what's coming, and mentions something about deciphering what N sent to see what he means. See, along with this post from Howard is an accompanying post from a mysterious NR on the Fun and Pretty Things site. This NR character is believed to be Nicolia Rosa, a bold future employee who is featured in this month's Employee of the Month feature on the Tagarada webpage. But I know you guys, you don't care about that, you want to hear the audio file. Well, here you go. Sorry, I know that was a bit dialogue heavy.
For real though, upon first listen to this audio, it's practically undecipherable, and the first 25 seconds of it has this strange ominous music playing that sounds like a cut track from a Silent Hill game. The weird dial-up internet sounds that you are hearing though is actually an old ham radio technique for relaying images through sound called SSTV or slow scan television, and it's really neat. Basically, you run this audio file through an SSTV decoder and it will slowly generate an image from the sound file. This one in particular revealing this. Now, I'm not a rocket surgeon, but I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be there. If there was any bit of evidence to support Howard's claims, this would be it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are actually at the home stretch of this ARG. We are literally a day away from the release of 10 Cloverfield Lane, but we have one last thing to discuss before we dig into the film itself.
On March 10th, it was revealed that if you try to call Howard's cell phone, you were met with a new outgoing message from Howard, and he seems to be in pretty high spirits.
That phone belongs to my daughter. I don't know how you got it, but it doesn't matter much anyways. It's happening. And I wish everyone just listened to me. I could have helped you all if you just listened.
Seems that Howard came to the realization that Megan has never been the one interacting with Howard on the Fun and Pretty Things site, nor the cell phone. Speaking of the cell phone, Howard sends the phone a new text message asking whoever's in possession of the phone to clear the VM inbox so that he can send a new one. And here is Howard's final message.
It's my fault. I say that now. You know, it's too late for you to leave Chicago. I'm never going to see you again. You were my little girl, and it was my job to protect you. I failed. But I'm going to make it up to you. I know how to make it right. I promise.
And with that ominous message, we have reached the end of this film's ARG.
Like I said at the beginning of this, a much shorter experience, but what's here is an incredibly rich narrative that delves a great deal into Howard's backstory, to the point that when you actually get around to watching the movie, you can see exactly why Howard makes the decisions he does in the film. This ARG was also, aside from a major misstep with the cell phone segment, an absolute masterclass in player participation that definitely excelled where the first film's ARG didn't in that category. I was so thrilled to be able to take part in this one, and it lives rent-free in my head hand in hand with the first one. With all of that said, we have but one thing left to do. It's time to see where all of these elements fit into the film. I'm going to go through each moment from the movie that is directly tied into something involved in the ARG that we discovered. And while I didn't do this for the first one because that movie was over 16 years old, for this one, I'm going to throw up a spoiler warning here. This movie is an absolutely phenomenal first watch, and I would hate to spoil any of the surprises for you. So if you haven't seen it yet, pause this video, go watch it, have a good time, and then come back. All right, let's begin.
Oh, Megan!
Right here, near the very start of the film, we see Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, Michelle, filling up for gas as she prepares to leave her partner, Ben. While she's filling up, you could see a neon sign for our favorite deep-sea nectar-based drink, Slusho, at the gas station. As I said in my last video, JJ loves dropping Slusho nods in his projects, but when you're watching a Cloverfield movie, it does hit just a bit harder seeing it here. A few scenes later, when Michelle winds up in Howard's bunker, Howard begins filling Michelle in on why she's in a bunker and what he believes is happening above ground, and I want you to take a wild guess on who he believes is behind this.
Russians are developing some nasty stuff, and if the Martians finally figured out a way to get here,
God damn, he really does have a hard-on for those Soviets, doesn't he? But we now know from his messages to Megan why exactly he feels this way from all of the experience working with spy satellites for the Navy. This next thing is more of a general praise I have for this whole narrative, but the ARG team really outdid themselves on writing Howard in the ARG exactly how he's portrayed in the film. It definitely makes it more believable that the guy saying things like this reacts the way he does in the film. They both feel like the exact same character. A little later on, we're introduced to our third main character, Emmett, as we see his living quarters are confined to a food and beverage storage room, complete with swamp pop. Specifically, the Jean Lafitte ginger ale, which was absolutely delicious, and oh god, I want it back so bad. Please bring back swamp pop, I'm begging you. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. Next up, Howard begins giving Michelle a tour of the bunker, along with all of its various features and amenities. During this tour, Howard mentions this little fun fact.
The aquaponics system cleans the air and keeps it fresh.
This is actually something that is featured in the survival simulation game that Howard made. It was important to keep fish in your bunker, as it would provide fresher air for a longer period of time. Really neat to see Howard practicing the tactics that he advised Megan of on the site. Speaking of Megan...
Those are Megan's. She never went anywhere without 2 or 3 of those things.
Who's Megan?
Megan's not with us anymore.
Yeah, so while it's not confirmed to be true or not, we do find out here in the movie that because of the attack and the fact that her mother kept her from him, Howard believes she's dead at this point, which makes his standoffishness towards talking about her in the first chunk of the movie hit harder, because we know just how hard he tried to get in contact with her and save her from whatever is going on now. Howard hasn't seen his daughter in years at this point, and he's just coping with the fact that his daughter isn't around as healthily as he can. A couple scenes later, Michelle is still incredibly suspicious of Howard and feels as though he's not being entirely truthful about everything he knows, so she probes Emmett about him.
He was in the Navy, I know that. I guess he did some stuff with satellites.
What kind of stuff?
Satellite stuff.
Well, Emmett may not know the details, but we sure do. The spy satellites, his experience as a radio man investigating the Soviets. This little exchange gets way more fleshed out thanks to us having played through the ARG. In the same scene, we also hear Emmett describe something he witnessed right before the attack.
I was on my way home from work, and it looked like a flash, bright red, like an explosion from way far off.
Emmett is describing the very same flash of red light that was mentioned in the audio recording from the International Space Station. In the next scene, this happens. I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with the ARG. I just really love John Goodman. Moving on, Howard and Michelle eventually get to talking about Michelle's desire to be a clothing designer when we get to see Howard open up a little bit more about Megan and even finally get to see what she looked like.
She was smart. Loved to read. The magazines were just for fun. She inhaled books. Anything with Paris. She liked their movies.
Aw, what a nice, real, 100% definitely actually genuine photo of Megan. Why did I phrase it that way? I'll never tell. It also becomes clear here why we are seeing all the Eiffel Tower imagery throughout the ARG.
We used to have this little joke where every once in a while I'd ask her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you know what she'd say? French.
Moving right along, as we conclude a montage of the gang passing the time and trying their best to exist in the bunker, Emmett runs into a little problem.
You've got to be kidding me.
What?
We're missing pieces here. Look at this poor cat. He's been deformed. He's got one eye.
Now, I know this is so dumb, but this was my Jamie Lascano moment for this movie. When Mugen's keeper went out and dug up that dead drop in Covington, along with the USB drives and the ammo box were several jigsaw pieces from this very same puzzle, and this just made me laugh way harder than it should have.
At the time, I was laughing hysterically in the theater. I absolutely loved the movie, but seeing that scene, not realizing there would be even any mention of this and this oddball puzzle piece that I had, but there's an entire scene about it. And I was like, oh my God, I have that piece. That's the piece I have that was dug up with this. And it made the excitement come back all over again.
What a fun little moment here that seems like a throwaway bit of dialogue without knowing that. Shortly after this, the air filtration system locks up and it's up to Michelle to climb through the ventilation shaft to reset it. When she gets through, however, she makes quite a few discoveries. First and foremost, we see a letter to Howard from Bold Futura. This is a nice little nod to Howard's professional background that we learned. That's not good. Yeah, so between finding this and a bloody pair of earrings, Michelle gets pretty freaked out and goes to Emmett about it, thinking Megan died in there, but then we get the big reveal.
He lied about Megan.
What do you mean? His family moved to Chicago years ago. Wait, that's not Megan.
What do you mean?
Yeah, her name is Brittany. I remember her. She went to high school with my little sister. She went missing 2 years back.
There was a message up there. It said help. It was scratched on the inside of the window. And this earring was with it. He said to my face that this was his daughter. He said this was Megan.
This twist hits so much harder knowing what we know. The months that went by as we watched Howard trying to desperately get in contact with his daughter, playing the victim in this whole situation as just a caring, protective father trying to get her to safety, to only find out that he literally kidnapped a random child and lived out a disturbed fantasy to replace his real daughter? The fuck do you mean? I sang the previous film's praises for the impact it had on me as a child, but from a pure narrative standpoint, this movie is miles better. Also, hashtag Denise was right. And finally, the very last thing we see tied to the ARG in the film is towards the very end of the film. Michelle finally gets out, she breathes the first bit of fresh air in days, and then she encounters this. Turns out, Howard was both absolutely insane and correct, as there was in fact an alien invasion, and this ship was actually teased to us in that SSTV scan image from outer space.
And that's a wrap, folks. We've done it. We talked about both movies as well as their ARGs in depth. We've covered everything. This was a ton of fun to do, and I can't thank you all enough for being a part of this journey with me. Well, I'm not sure what I'll be talking about next. I hope you'll join me for it. So, until next time. Okay, fuck. We'll talk about Paradox. Jesus Christ.
That is one big pile of shit.
Before we get started here, let me preface this by first stating that I am not a movie critic. I recently saw M. Night Shyamalan's movie Trap that came out a few months ago. I absolutely love that movie, only for everyone online to let me know that I am very wrong about that. The point is, I like what I like. I want you to take what I say about films with a grain of salt and form your own opinions, especially if you haven't seen Cloverfield Paradox. That being said, this movie sucks!
I gotta say, JJ gets a lot of shit for how the Star Wars sequel trilogy panned out, but that was not the first time JJ dipped his hands into a franchise that had a really solid first movie, a sequel that went in a completely different direction than fans were expecting, and then a third movie that shat on the entire legacy of what came before it.
Somehow Cloverfield returned.
And look, if you just look at this movie in a vacuum without any knowledge of the previous two films, and you look at it as just a generic sci-fi action thriller, it's fine, I guess? It's the kind of movie that you'd expect to see from a Netflix exclusive. But sadly, we can't look at it in a vacuum, because JJ and the Bad Robot team took yet another spec script and repurposed it for the sake of making it another Cloverfield anthology film. But then they decided, oh wait, what if we make this film retroactively tie into the two previous movies? Movies that have no ties whatsoever because they are supposed to be anthology installments. The result is this fugly Frankenstein of a film plot that shoves very out of place and forced reshoots into the story so that it makes the last two films somehow tie into each other, and it's giving me an aneurysm the more I think about it. Can you tell I'm not a fan?
Here's how we're going to handle this one. We're going to talk about how this travesty came to life, we're going to dig into the abysmal ARG that lasted a measly 16 days, and then we're going to tie this up in a nice little bow and see how it all culminates in this clusterfuck of a movie. Sorry, I will be nicer about it. This absolute dumpster fire. Okay, I tried, okay?
As I said earlier, the origins of the Cloverfield Paradox began as a spec script for a potential movie called God Particle. The script revolved around a space station crew as a mission goes haywire, and they all have to figure out how to survive. It was written by Oren Uziel, and eventually the script was acquired by Bad Robot in 2012, who just kind of held on to it for years. Only for old JJ to look at it and go, I can fix her. Eventually, Julius Ona was brought on board to direct, who's made hit films like The girl is in trouble. Lucy? Oh shit. Okay, apparently he's directing the new Captain America movie. I don't know if I should feel impressed or terrified about that now. In 2016, shortly after the release of Cloverfield Lane, it was announced that a new Cloverfield movie was in the works. However, we would not hear anything further of it until 2018, in the middle of the 52nd Super Bowl, where we were finally given a trailer for it.
Possible earthquake near the Statue of Liberty.
Looks like you should have left town a little bit earlier.
Whatever you're doing, stop.
I will give credit where credit is due. Not only did they drop a new Cloverfield trailer in the middle of arguably the most viewed event in television, but they actually shadow dropped this thing, revealing at the end of the trailer that it would be releasing that very night after the game was finished on Netflix. While the trailer itself is pretty basic compared to the previous films, the reveal of it releasing that night got people hyped as hell for it.
A very ballsy move that was still very in line with this series' unorthodox way of revealing these movies. But it is here that you may be wondering, well, where the hell is the ARG for this? While we're about to get into it, I gotta tell you, it's not very well put together.
Are you evil? Once for yes, two for no.
Normally, these ARGs kick off with the trailer first, and then that trailer has a little thing in it hiding in plain sight that leads us to our website to investigate. Well, that didn't happen this time. Instead, Reddit user Cookamer, who had been diligently monitoring the pre-existing websites from the previous films, noticed on January 18th, the day of the first film's 10-year anniversary, that the Tagrawato webpage has been updated. And I think the webmaster took a vacation because the site is now inaccessible with an error message being displayed here. But underneath that, there appears to be some sort of message. After quickly realizing the image behind the error screen could easily be saved to a computer and viewed, we were able to view it in its full but distorted glory. The message reads, Tokyo, January 18th, 2018. Tagrawato has begun development on a revolutionary new energy technology, and what CEO Ganu Yoshida called a technological great leap forward for our planet. This renewable technology will take at least 4 years to complete, along with another 6 years. International regulatory bodies to bring the powerful revolutionary energy source by April 18th, 2028.
This is great and all, but you might have noticed that there are a lot of nods to the first film and its ARG, references to Ganu Yoshida, and a lot of dates teetering around the original 1/18/08 date. For example, the Tagrawato page updating on January 18th of 2018, the Cloverfield Energy Initiative starting April 18th, 2028. It all feels like it's subliminally telling you to remember the first film and the ARG that came with it.
Someone wised up to this and pondered if there was a website for this new 2028 date, and sure enough, the next day at 04182028.com, we are met with this. You catch all that? Neither did I. Apparently this ARG's one trick is slow feeding us snippets of information through a blender. Almost none of it is decipherable, but a small portion of the clip where the man talking at the camera appears to say, and then a whole 5 days pass with nothing new to discover on the site. It's not until January 24th that the Tagrawato site updates yet again with a similar looking error message, but underneath that, again, appears to be some sort of document hidden behind the error message. While a lot of it is unintelligible again, there are some key things to take away from this. It appears to be a Tagrawato memo from someone named Oslo, and it's dated in the future this time, specifically January 22nd, 2022. We can see little snippets of info here regarding an energy revolution and new orders being added at a record pace. Between this memo and the last, there are many instances of the word energy in it, leading people to believe this ARG is going to involve energy as one of the focal points in the story. We also see an update to the 4/18/2028 page as we get to hear the name of the person in front of the camera. This
This is the ARG's first and only reference to 10 Cloverfield Lane, as seemingly this guy has some ties to Howard Stambler, but I hope you were ready to come away with no additional info about that, because that's all we're given on the matter. Is it his cousin? Is it his brother? You will never know. Suck it, lore enthusiast.
With the fact that we have a new name involved, though, obviously people took to social media to see if a Mark Stambler could be found anywhere. And wouldn't you know it, we found out he has a Twitter page. In his first tweet, you'll see that Mark denies ever putting up any videos on any sites. He infers that he made this Twitter account just to go on record and deny any claims being made that he's involved with these videos, and believes one of his university students is behind it. 3 days later, on January 27th, the Tagarado website updates yet again with a garbled newspaper article with the headline, "The Cloverfield Energy Initiative," brought to you by the Future Energy Development Commission. Along with this, though, it appears someone has faintly written something in Sharpie near the top of the paper. A bit hard to read, but luckily Reddit user Damien John was able to make out what it says. Someone needs to stop this from happening. This is nothing but a cover for a reckless experiment that will reset the world's grid. Stop this to save the world. Signed, Tidal Wave, baby! Woo boy, I can't wait to see what they have planned to stop Tagarado this time. What? What do you mean they don't do anything with it? God damn it!
Alright everyone, how are we doing? This video is long as fuck by this point. If you're still here listening to me yap about incredibly niche content for well over an hour now, thank you so much. This topic is obviously very near and dear to me, for better or for worse, and the outpouring of support I've received for this project of mine has been so overwhelming and kind, and I'm genuinely so grateful to have you here listening to me talk about something I care so much about. For this next part, we are going to take a bit of a brief intermission of sorts to talk about an event that happened prior to this third film's installment. So let's rewind the clock a bit to around July 23rd, 2017.
It was on this date that a very real Slusho food truck suddenly appeared at the San Diego Comic-Con, giving out flavored slushy drinks in theme with the Slusho brand like Chocolate Rage and Blueberry Zoom. And man, what I would have given to be able to say I've had an actual Slusho beverage. Hopefully, minus the seabed nectar that makes people explode, but I digress. Along with this food truck was advertising of a Twitter account and a Snapchat filter that could be used in the app. SDCC goers who went up to the truck and ordered a drink received these very odd power sticks that had Tagarado branding that say, "Here to give San Diego a boost." The other thing to note here is that on the truck itself there's an image of all the robots laid out in a line. All except one, that is. On the Snapchat filter, the missing robot is actually found in there, and if you took a picture with the robot in a way that had him fill the missing spot on the image and brought it to a Slusho server, they would have you fill out a form to receive a Slusho figurine.
Obviously, the SDCC was a major event, and so the Slusho truck was very publicized. However, San Diego was not the only location the truck had visited. The truck, according to their official Twitter account, visited Cooley Dam, Washington, Moss Landing, California, Arlington, Oregon, Tonopah and Springerfield, Arizona, Berwick, Pennsylvania, Fort River, New Jersey, and finally Buchanan, New York. Why did I painstakingly mention every single city? I'm so glad you asked, audience.
Reddit user The Stoned Ape created a mega thread discussing the significance of the Slusho truck and theorized a reason why all of these locations were selected. All of them hosted major gas and nuclear power plants for energy purposes. The Twitter account would sporadically update with tweets regarding various locations the truck had visited with some sort of pun or emoji about power and energy, and this continued on all the way until February 2nd of the following year. But the reason that I bring any of this up is because half a year later, on January 27th, 2018, people who had successfully figured out the Slusho robot photo puzzle and filled out the form finally received their Slusho figures, along with a good bit of other stuff included. Participants could find in their box this really neat bobblehead that resembles one of the little kids from the old Slusho.jp website, holding a Slusho drink in hand. It also comes with a little authenticity card that, while really cute, also says that Slusho is a subsidiary of Bold Futura. And my first initial thought was that this is definitely an error, given that Slusho and Bold Futura are both subsidiaries of Tagarado. And so I did what, any normal human being would do and Googled trademark rights for a fictional company, and most sites do confirm that Slusho is a subsidiary of Tagarado. But on the official US Patent and Trademark Office site, I found out that there's an actual trademark license for the Slusho brand that's owned by Bold Futura LLC, with trademark filings having been made as recently as October of 2024. I'm sorry, I may have looked way too deep into that. Most of the packaging is wrapped in some Japanese newspaper pages, which is a nice touch, but the final thing to look at here is this brochure from Tagruato advertising the Cloverfield Energy Initiative, a revolutionary new partnership that brings together top scientists, leading energy providers, and world governments as part of one coalition dedicated to reshaping the way we power the world. And it is again shown that this project is slated to go live on April 18th, 2028. There's also bits of info about what Bold Future is doing, apparently working on making new forms of artificial gravity, and Yoshida Medical Research has created their latest line of diving vehicles, ensuring more locations of seedbed nectar are discovered. On top of all of that I just mentioned, we get another update on the 4/18/28 site with another altered clip of our boy Mark. It's revealed here that Mark is a writer, but before we get the full title of the book, it's cut off, but whatever he wrote appears to have the word Cloverfield in it. Coincidentally, Twitter Mark updates his feed with a new comment, seemingly in reaction to the news video that went up. Yes, I admit it looks a lot like me, but come on, anyone with a phone can do convincing computer graphics these days. My students are clearly taking a lesson plan about temporal anomalies too far. Please stop emailing. #hoax. Oh my sweet summer child, you don't know how to use hashtags. Most notably about this tweet, though, is Mark's reference to temporal anomalies, which is a fancy phrase for disruptions in space-time resulting in time travel. And if there's one thing I know about time travel movie plots, it's that 90% of them have the biggest plot holes you've ever seen in your goddamn life. Fast forward to January 30th, and the 4/18/28 page updates yet again with, yes, you guessed it, another nearly undecipherable video.
Social media, my email, being possible. That convinced me that to happen again. Third floor, by the lamp.
I don't know what a lamp has to do with anything, but apparently Mark's supposed doppelganger on Twitter gets freaked out about this and says that he's already contacted NYPD. We get one final update to the Tagruato site for this ARG on January 31st, as we get another news article and a new message from Taito. This article appears to be Israeli in origin, as it is entirely written in Hebrew. What exciting info is there to be translated? A road is being closed for 3 weeks, and they hope it'll be fixed soon. Shout out to Reddit user Alpha Falcon's dad for that one.
As for Taito's final message, Tagruato's real reason to steal the rest of the world's energy. They spent 20 years redacted to open it, no matter the cost to the world. And that was all she wrote for Taito. Spoiler alert, there is zero mention of Taito in the movie. They are basically here to be member berries for the first ARG, which is something that could be said for a lot of this ARG. I'll go further into it soon, but there are nods and references to things in this ARG that have zero payoff in the final movie. No moments where your eyes light up as you notice something that happened during the ARG that had an impact on the film. It's very frustrating, and it's really sad going back to look at Reddit threads from this time of people having all of these theories for what it could all be leading to, just for it to be one giant nothing burger of a game.
Back to the topic at hand, though, on February 1st, users have been obviously commenting on Mark's tweets and mentioning things to him to get him to possibly respond. Kind of how things were when Denise got involved in the 10 Cloverfield Lane ARG. Eventually, Mark ends up DMing one of the users, a Reddit user by the name of Dope and Diamonds. Mark is in a panic seeing these videos of himself making statements that he's never said, and he doesn't know who to turn to. Mark begins to confide in Mr. Dope and explains that someone is sending him videos directly, but when asked to elaborate, Mark hesitates, not knowing who to trust. Now, regrettably, Dope makes a reference to Howard, which seems to really weird him out, stating, "I'm freaked out about strangers that seem to have details about my family and my life," which is valid, and Mark thinks that reaching out may have been a mistake and goes dark for a while. The next day, though, Mark returns, sending a couple of videos to some new users. The first user goes by FilmGuy88 on Reddit, and Mark sent him a video from his personal cell phone of a video that was sent to him.
They're scared. Lost. I have one answer for any of this. And who that woman is.
In the video, we don't see Mark for once, but instead someone who appears to be in some kind of uniform. In addition to this, Mark goes on to mention that whoever sent him this wants him to get the attention of someone on the 41828 site, and this video would help him figure out what to write. The second Reddit user, XInfinity, received this video. It appears to be the same uniformed man, but nothing really decipherable except a few words here and there, and Mark sends the same message that he sent to Film Guy about getting someone's attention on the 418 site. And I'm sure now you're wondering, okay, who's the person that Mark needs to get the attention of on the site? Well, you're going to stay wondering because the trail just ends there when it's starting to get good. Isn't that awesome? It's so dumb.
I am dead serious. The only new update we get is on the night of the Super Bowl, where the 41828 site updates one last time with a clip from Mark.
The likes of which we have never seen. You have no idea how much I would love to be wrong about this. It will be no fun to be right. If you want to know more, please, read my book.
And that's it. His book is called The Cloverfield Paradox. The movie is called Cloverfield Paradox. Hell, how this shit was thrown together as a Cloverfield Paradox.
It's really so baffling to me. Just when the ARG plot starts picking up a little steam, it just fizzles out into nothing like a wet fart, and it all just feels so last minute. The past two films, while they go their separate directions, the ARGs for them are pretty solid and had a decent amount of updates and excitement to keep you enthralled with the experience. Here, we just spend 2 weeks straining our eyes and ears for scraps of info that really just tells us the same thing over and over, that it's about energy and Tagruato is involved, and gives us a subplot with Howard's brother cousin, Mark, being harassed by seemingly another version of himself that just ends out of nowhere. What am I supposed to say to that? Oh yeah, I know.
Okay, we did it. Was a tough hill to climb at the end there, but we have covered all 3 ARGs for each movie. Now, the next logical step to go with this video would be to finally wrap up this whole thing, talk about all the points in the movie that tie into the ARG like we did for the last 2 films, and call it a day. However, if I were to do that for Cloverfield Paradox, I would be able to summarize everything in about 60 seconds tops, and let's be real, you haven't come all this way to see me finish in 60 seconds. That's what my girlfriend's for. I'm gonna do you guys a little solid. I'm not just going to recap the ARG in relation to the film. I'm going to recap this whole damn movie. So let's not waste any more time here. This is my review of the Cloverfield Paradox.
The worms! Ah! The worms are back!
The movie starts with snippets of radio broadcasts telling us the current state of the world, and things have never been better.
Government sources tell us the world's energy resources will be fully exhausted within 5 years.
One little detail I really like at the start here is we hear a small snippet of a familiar tune in between stations. Cherish this moment, they are few and far between. We then meet 2 of our main characters, Ava and Michael Hamilton, as they wait in an enormous line for gas that is currently $30 a gallon. Man, I don't even want to know the price of eggs in this time period. We find out, though, that Ava was offered a position on the team assigned to oversee the mission that could possibly solve the Earth's energy crisis. She turns down the offer to go until she's struck with a rare condition known as expositionitis.
Because people are starving, because our energy supplies are running out, and this mission could unlock an endless supply of power that could save us all.
We then move forward to Ava being on the ship known as the Cloverfield Space Station, as her and her team crew members, Keel, Schmidt, Monk, Mundy, Tam, and Volkov, prepare to test the Shepard particle accelerator for the first time. And if you'll notice, Commander Keel here is actually our mystery man from those weird videos that Mark Stambler received and shared in those Twitter DMs. This is also where my gripes with this movie begin. During the span of the ARG, it's frequently stated that Tagerato is in charge of overseeing this mission. However, there is zero mention of Tagerato in this movie. No mentions of the company, no Tagerato insignia shown on any of the uniforms. Hell, here they mentioned this group Helios, which was never mentioned at all. This is one of the many examples of how things feel so forced to make it a Cloverfield movie. As I was saying though, they make an attempt to get the accelerator working for the first time, and unfortunately it's unsuccessful. Well, that's okay, you know what they say. Third time's the charm, right? Oh my god, that's a problem. Yeah, we find out that the crew has been in outer space for 2 years trying desperately to have a successful firing of their particle accelerator, but to no avail sadly, and things on Earth aren't faring any better either.
Oil wars are spreading. Russia's threatening ground invasion now. Can you believe that? Ground invasion.
We're gonna move on now. Tensions on the ship are high and morale is low, as the ship only has enough fuel to fire the accelerator 3 more times. Girl, I feel ya. If I had to eat 3D printed bagels, I'd be depressed too. We learn that Volkov and Schmidt have some beef with each other, as Volkov thinks Schmidt, who's in charge of maintaining the accelerator, is deliberately ensuring that the accelerator fails.
Volkov, you need to think very carefully about what you're saying.
We've both heard of reports. Germany is preparing for war. And every day that goes by, more and more Russians are starving. Maybe you're not in such a hurry to get the Shepherd working.
And I'm sorry, but I find it really odd that Volkov is so small-minded to think that anyone on this ship, handpicked for their potential to overcome the greatest energy crisis in the history of mankind, would be trying to compromise the entirety of Earth over their home country. Maybe I'm just being nitpicky here. I don't know. Just comes across as a dumb reason for conflict. But ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our one brief moment for the ARG to have its moment of relevance. Are you ready?
Every time they tested, they risked ripping open the membrane of space-time, smashing together multiple dimensions. This experiment could unleash chaos, the likes of which we have never seen. Monsters, demons, beasts from the sea.
I know your neck probably hurts from that aggressive Dutch angle, but we finally see that the little snippets we were seeing on the 4/18/28 site were from this news interview with Mark Stambler essentially telling us the entire plot of the movie. It is the most obnoxious foreshadowing I have ever seen in a film, and it's such an awful way to explain how all of these movies are connected because this movie makes no efforts to flesh out these connections to the other movies either. We just have to accept that suddenly the multiverse is a concept in this franchise, and because of that, old Clovey spawned in and decided to fuck up Rob's going away party. Even less of a connection is given to anything revolving around 10 Cloverfield Lane. We just have to assume it's connected by proxy because the guy on the space TV has the last name Stambler. If you're interested at all in the lore for this series, you're going to walk away with so many questions with no answers to show for it. This film is the quintessential example of JJ's mystery box formula not always working as well as he thinks it does. Mysteries are fun, they should invoke questions and theories, but to a point. After you reach that point, you should probably fill your audience in a little bit. Cloverfield 1 does this, hell, Cloverfield Lane does this. But this movie does so much random shit for no reason, and you just have to go along with it because temporal anomalies, I guess. It's a spit in the face of the franchise and the people who wrote those movies. And I hate to break it to you, but we're only 15 minutes into this movie, and it's about to get so much worse. Shortly after this, though, the crew prepares as they are about to begin what is one of their few attempts left to save the Earth.
Please, God, be on our side.
Okay, it's not actually edited that way, but God, I wish it was. Things have gone very wrong this time, as the accelerator suddenly achieves a great burst of energy that overloads the system, and, oh hey, the Celestial figure. They very quickly realize the ramifications of what's happened.
Keel, it isn't there.
The frequency for mission control?
The Earth.
Whoopsie poopsie. Yeah, for as much shit as I give this movie, I actually really do like this plot element of them seemingly Thanos snapping the Earth. As we'll see soon, that's not exactly what happens, but I think this movie would have honestly benefited from going all in on this element rather than going with the constant anything can happen type scenario that they actually go with. And this movie's whole premise was them erasing the Earth, trying to undo what they did to bring it back, and then right at the end when they think they've brought their Earth back, they go home and realize it's an alternate Earth that has all of the Cloverfield stuff in it. I think the movie would have been just a little bit better for it, but I'm not a screenwriter, so what the fuck do I know? Anyways, let's see what the actual screenwriters ended up doing instead. Let me check my notes, and worms teleport into Volkov's brain and make him 3D print a gun. Yo, I'm so tired. Yeah, it is at this point that this movie goes off the rails insane. We keep cutting to Volkov as his eye keeps bothering him, and I won't lie, the first time I saw this movie I thought, man, that's the take they went with, huh? But when Volkov and Hamilton go out to see how to fix the ship's compass, only to find that it's also missing, we get this weird-ass interaction.
This look okay?
That's suspicious.
We don't get to dwell on that very long because naturally the walls begin to scream. The crew soon finds the source of the strange noise, only to find it's a woman trapped inside the wall. The crew cut her out of the wall, but get pretty freaked out when she seems to know who Hamilton is. Hamilton nor the crew have ever seen this lady before, but she seems to know them. Never mind that though, because we have to cut back to Michael? Yeah, so this is the film's subplot, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because it's stupid, pointless, and a waste of the film's runtime. I could be wrong, but I believe all of these scenes with Michael were reshoots made to make this movie more Cloverfieldy and make you remember bits of the older movies. Oh, an explosion! Kinda looks like that explosion from the first movie. Ooh, they're in a bunker? That's just like that one movie. Anyways, shit's hitting the fan on Earth because of the accelerator experiment, and for some reason Michael decides to go out to where it's happening and provide medical support at a hospital, I guess. Well, enough of that, back to the ship. What the fuck is this movie? Alright, so Mundy notices that the worm tank is missing all the, well, you know, the worms, followed by a scene change to Volkov, who's, oh, my guy, I don't think that's supposed to happen. So you kind of piece together pretty quickly that the worms are now, for some reason, just chilling in Volkov's head, and on paper, that's already more enough nonsensical bullshit for one movie. But then the worms start speaking to him?
Excuse me. Yes.
You can't hear what they're saying, but judging by the very next scene where he starts literally 3D printing a pistol and some ammo, I have no choice but to assume they told him to do that. I have like a million questions about this. Why are the worms inside Volkov? Did they just teleport inside of him? Why can they now talk? Why do they seem to suddenly have evil intentions? More importantly, why is the 3D printer that makes styrofoam looking ass bagels able to make firearms? It's such a bizarre series of events to happen back to back, it's almost impressive. I've never been so utterly flabbergasted by a writing decision in a movie.
You're his granddaughter.
Yeah, okay, except that one. That one's just painful. So yeah, Volkov makes his 3D blicky and sets out to find Schmidt, who he had beef with already for thinking he's sabotaging the mission. But then he gets a little sick and decides it's nap time. They bring him to a medical room where Tam puts Volkov's gun away in a cabinet, and then we have to see our obligatory space horror chestburster type scene.
Well, we found the worms.
Bro, your crewmate just horrifically died. Why are you quipping? Coincidentally, after this event, mysterious wall lady wakes up and Hamilton begins to question her. Mina here claims to be the ship's shepherd engineer, a role that is currently occupied by Tam, only Mina doesn't recognize Tam at all, and then Mina out of nowhere tells Hamilton that Schmidt is the culprit for all of their failings, and then Hamilton just immediately believes her? You've been on the ship with Schmidt for 2 years, but this random woman you just met in the wall says don't trust him, and we just flip that easily? Why does everyone have it out for Schmidt? Look at this sweet baby boy. Why would he be bad? Well, it turns out Kiel, after some digging, is able to uncover encrypted documents revealing Schmidt to actually be working for the Germans to hold off successful firings of the accelerator until Germany takes over Russia. But Schmidt seems genuinely confused here, not knowing where this info is coming from and denying any involvement with that.
I saw your response! Have you lost your mind?
But it doesn't matter, and they put him in space jail.
You freaking pricks!
Now let's see what Michael's up to. Ooh, what's that shadow? I don't care. Michael does end up finding a little girl that he finds in the rubble. That's kind of important, I guess. She's looking for her parents. Okay, what happens next? So, Mundy's arm gets eaten by a really cheap-looking special effect.
Where's my bloody arm?
Chris O'Dowd is trying so hard not to laugh at how stupid this scene is. I love it. Immediately after this, Schmidt's cell suddenly opens, and if it seems like I'm skipping major scenes or anything, I'm really not. This is legitimately the pace of this movie. Every scene is just a random idea that someone in the writing room had, and then they were like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't care. Next, this movie's going to tell me that Mundy's arm is alive and just crawling around the ship. You know what? Sure. I give up. I give up.
That's my fucking arm.
Yeah, you use that PG-13 F-bomb, Mundy. You deserve it. So it appears that Schmidt was released from his prison to explain the plot to the rest of the crew, as he realizes that this is due to the overload from the Shepard accelerator, and two universes are battling for dominance, creating chaos. You can read more about it in Mark Stambler's new book, The Clover... Okay, so... bear with me. Mundy's arm requests a pen and lets them know to cut Volkov's body open. Monk, the literal medic on the ship, is like,
sorry, you can't do this.
and so Tam says, fuck it, I'll do it, I guess, and opens him up to find the compass inside him as well. Bro had worms and a spaceship compass inside his body. How did he not let anyone know something was wrong? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills at this point. This plot is absolutely insane. So they finally get the compass working and find the Earth, only to realize that this Earth is not theirs. It's an alternate one where they and the ship crashed 2 days prior and a world war broke out. For some reason, though, everyone suddenly gets monkey brain and says, it looks like our Earth, close enough, let's go home. Except for Schmidt, who's the only sensible one here, telling them that there's no point in going there. They're a lost cause, it wouldn't help them get to their own home that still has a chance. And what does Hamilton think? I don't know. She just kind of stands there. Back to the highlight of the movie, Michael.
Shouldn't text while driving.
Only in emergencies.
Okay, but seriously though, Michael and the little girl he found, Molly, just end up in a bunker. No mention of how we got there or whose bunker it is, but I guess it's like 10 Cloverfield Lane, so it'll do, I suppose. And then they just hang out there for the rest of the movie, because he finds out through text that the hospital he was going to go to got destroyed off camera. Really amazing how well thought out the subplot is. It's literally just him going around trying to find a thing for him to do so that his placement in this movie feels deserved. Hey, but we're about an hour into this movie, so I guess it's time that we should kill another crew member suddenly. Let's see how we can do this. I don't know, what if somehow the space station flooded? Damn, homegirl did not deserve that. Without Tam, though, the crew was unsure how to get back home now, until Hamilton realizes, we've got Tam at home. Hamilton and the remaining crew get Mina up to speed as they prep to fire the Shepard again, with the hopes of getting back to their homeworld. During a private moment with Hamilton, Mina reveals that in this current universe that we're in, Hamilton is home with their kids, and they're still alive. Yeah, apparently in Hamilton's world, there was a house fire a few years back that saw the deaths of her 2 children. Wait. Why does Mina have this? This may be her universe they're in, but we're still on the same ship from the first universe. How does she have this? You know what? I'm not even going to try to rationalize this nonsensical movie. This story, against all odds, though, somehow gets more stupid, because Hamilton tells Keel that if they are able to get the Shepard to fire successfully, she's going to take an escape pod to this current Earth to be with your kids that are still alive. Hamilton, you have not thought this through. What are you going to do when you get there? They still have their own mom alive and well down there. What are you gonna do? Did this movie conceptualize the plot of Multiverse of Madness before Sam Raimi did? What the fuck is happening? Okay. Taking a deep breath. We're gonna move on. We have 30 minutes left of this movie. We can do this. So the crew's plan to get enough power to the ship to fire the Shepherd is to cut off the oxygen tanks, therefore allocating more energy to the Shepherd, and then after adjusting some parameters that Tam figured out before she died, they'll be able to successfully fire it and then be home free. Easy peasy, right?
Guys?
I'm gonna pause this right here real quick. This is the one mention of Tagruato in the whole movie. I guess I'll remove one negative point from this movie. They do mention them on a power box. Woo. Anyways, magnets go burr. Oh, that's going to be a problem. So essentially, the bottom half of the Cloverfield is in shambles, and if they don't detach it from the rest of the ship, it's going to completely destroy it. And Commander Keel suddenly realizes that he wants to unalive himself. I am so dead serious.
Wait, Keel, what are you doing?
To decouple the ring, this portal has to be locked.
Wait, no, Keel, we can do
I'm the
this
commander
remotely.
of this station. I have to do this.
Bro, are you not listening? She said you can do it remotely. Leaving everyone behind to have a big dumb hero's death is one of my least favorite tropes in movies, but this one is so laughably bad because Hamilton literally tells him there's a smarter way to do it. Keel, you don't have to die, we could do this remotely. No, Hamilton, we have 25 minutes of runtime left and too many crew members. Oh no, if only there was some way we could have saved him. Alright, let's wrap this up. The crew, with only 43 minutes of air left, makes plans to A. Prep a pod for Hamilton and Mina to head back to the alternate Earth, B. Overload the Shepherd again to warp them back to their home universe, and then C. Fire the Shepherd a second time with Tam's calculations to fire the Shepherd properly, tapping into the infinite energy source they had been meaning to take advantage of since the start of the film. Only get this crazy plot twist. Mina's the villain all along? Man, I would have never guessed from all of the monotone acting and emotionless blank staring she's been giving since the entirety of the film. And listen, that's not shade to the actress here, Elizabeth Debicki is great, but am I supposed to genuinely be surprised that she's the bad guy when she's directed to act like an empty void for 99% of the movie?
No thoughts. Empty. No thoughts.
Mina decides it's time to grab Chekhov's gun and goes on a shooting spree.
Please, Jensen.
She thinks that keeping the Shepherd here will be the answer to saving her planet, but they already explained in this movie that they are giving Mina what she needs to eventually save her world, so she doesn't need the ship. But she decides that's not fast enough, so you guys gotta go. Hamilton realizes she needs to stay on the ship and stop Mina, and she deals with her in the most hilarious way possible. With Mina dealt with, Hamilton does what she should have done originally instead of deciding to live with her doppelganger, and leaves a message for her alternate self to not set the house on fire. I don't know why she didn't just think to do that to begin with, but I guess we had to pad the runtime. This movie is only an hour and a half as it is. We find out Schmidt survived his gunshots and they successfully fire the Shepherd particle accelerator, getting back home, and with their final shot left, they successfully create their infinite energy source. Firm handshakes all around. They can finally go home 2 years and 2 dimensions later. All is well, and our heroes can finally rest.
There is a choice. Tell them not to come back. Tell them not to come back!
Okay. Hold on. What the fuck is that about? I should be really excited to see this again. But instead, I'm just angry. Is this the original monster from the first movie? Why is it so big that it's surpassing the clouds? The first one was like barely skyscraper sized. Is this the mom? Why the fuck would you end the movie like that? JJ, did you think about any of this? This movie, from the plot to the dialogue to the choices the characters make to the Cloverfield tie-ins, just feel so laced with laziness that oozes out of every pore. It's a shameless cash grab that capitalizes on people's desires to see a real and true Cloverfield sequel, a return to form. But instead, we got this piece of shit, and every time I think of this movie, I'm reminded of the immense potential this series had, and if we never get an actual direct sequel for Cloverfield, you can blame this movie for it. 5 out of 10. I really never want to watch this movie again.
And with that, we have finally completed this journey. I've got to say, it's been an absolute treat to make this. Obviously, I know a lot of you are new to my channel and you're here right now because you saw Cloverfield in the title and were intrigued. But if you're still watching this incredibly long video, then I'm glad this really resonated with you. I seriously can't say thank you enough to everyone who showed support for the last one when I wasn't entirely sure what people would think, and seeing the overwhelming support for that video and my writing style, it's lit a fire in me to keep doing more videos like these. So if you would like to stick around and subscribe to the channel to see what I do next, it would mean a great deal to me. There's so much more that I'd like to talk about with other passions of mine, and you better believe if a Cloverfield 4 ever does get released, I will definitely be covering that. Finally, before I go, one final shout out to Mugen's Keeper for taking the time out of their day to come chat with me, and also a huge thank you to my friends Mark and Kate for helping me film these. I literally could not have made these without them. Much love to you all. I'll see you in the next one.